It was total obliteration. A devastating series of strikes crippled Iran's regime, preventing it from being a major geopolitical player. Even President Trump was surprised by how quickly Iran's regime fell. The U.S. achieved one of the fastest victories in modern military history. All it took was 12 hours. Now, Iran is on the verge of complete collapse. On February 28, the U.S. and Israel launched two simultaneous operations, Epic Fury and Roaring Lion. Their goal: dismantle Iran's dictatorial regime. Massive air power, delivered within hours, left the regime in tatters, destroying key military nodes that could have enabled retaliation. The numbers are staggering. 900 strikes in just 12 hours. A shock-and-awe campaign that shook the country. This report explains how the U.S. executed its 12-hour operation and what the U.S.-Israel collaboration aimed to achieve. Iranian air defenses were destroyed, retaliation weakened, and command and control devastated. Iran was left a shadow of its former military strength. First blasts in Tehran were reported around 10 a.m. local time. About an hour later, President Trump announced major combat operations had begun. Over 11 hours, the U.S. and Israel struck defenses, leadership, and key military installations. The assault focused mainly on Tehran. The airspace over Tehran went nearly dark, similar to restricted airspaces during major military deployments. A map showed civilian air traffic avoiding Iran, with flights diverted from neighboring hotspots like Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria. As part of the 12-hour campaign, the U.S. eliminated Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, along with hundreds of regime officials. This report will later examine the implications of that action. The operation's success came from overwhelming firepower. Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched in massive numbers from over 20 American warships and submarines. Footage shows dozens of missiles flying low over terrain toward their targets, hitting multiple strategic locations. Iran's air defenses, mostly Russian and Chinese systems, failed to stop the low-flying missiles. Concerns exist that U.S. stockpiles of Tomahawks were heavily depleted, but RTX Corporation is increasing production to 1,000 units per year. The U.S. launched precision strikes. Tomahawk missiles were crucial in the first 12 hours, alongside fighter jets from carriers. F-35s and Fa-180 Super Hornets from U.S. carriers in the Persian Gulf led the initial blitz. Their strikes hit an Iranian drone platform and multiple ballistic missile launch sites. Other jets like F-16s were also active. US jets targeted Iran's naval facilities. Operation Epic Fury destroyed significant assets in Iran's navy. President Trump confirmed 9 Iranian naval ships were destroyed or sunk, including large and important vessels. Iran's naval headquarters was also destroyed. Satellite images confirmed the sinking of 3 warships. These included a frigate and 2 corvettes, with 3 more vessels, like patrol boats, also destroyed. Iran began with only 7 frigates and 3 corvettes. Losing any warship further limits their naval power. This marks Iran's first loss of warships since the 1980s, significantly impacting their naval capabilities. The U.S. also deployed ATAGs as missiles. Military Watch magazine reports footage from CENTCOM showing attack maze fired from HIMARS launchers, targeting Iranian radars, air defenses, and ballistic missile sites. Other footage shows ATACMS used against a Bavay 373 air defense system. These missiles would have needed to be launched from within 300 kilometers of Iran, suggesting bases in Iraq or Turkey may have been used. Alongside Tomahawks and ATACMS, the U.S. used Lucas one-way attack drones. Task Force Scorpion Strike deployed these drones for the first time. CNN reports Lucas drones are modeled after the Iranian Shahed 136, are now delivering American-made retribution. CENTCOM declares, Iran experienced a taste of its own medicine alongside the overwhelming display of American firepower on February 28. America's 12 hours of epic fury represent one of the most significant demonstrations of US aerial power in years. CENTCOM describes it as the largest regional concentration of American military firepower. To understand the impact, it's important to examine how Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion worked together to cripple Iran in 12 hours. While the U.S. and Israel shared the goal of toppling Iran's regime, each took different roles in the opening phase. Israel's role, in particular, may have been more damaging to Iran's ability to fight. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the U.S. and Israel pursued a strategy best summarized as destroy and decapitate. The U.S. focused on military targets, including warships and ballistic missile sites, while Israel targeted Iran's leadership. ISW claims Khamenei likely died due to the Israeli component of the operation. Other Iranian leaders were reportedly killed. Iran International notes that ISENA reports thousands of IRGC members were killed or wounded, though this figure is unconfirmed, and Al Jazeera cites the Iranian Red Crescent Society, reporting at least 555 Iranian casualties. The exact scale of fatalities remains uncertain. The U.S. has already followed up with additional strikes, including B-2 Spirit stealth bombers targeting underground missile facilities. Max Afterburner describes this as layered, synchronized air power at its peak. emphasizing the U.S. strategy to dismantle Iran's air defenses. ISW highlights the approach. The U.S. destroyed military nodes while Israel focused on leadership, all within a 12-hour window, marking a major display of modern military capability. Looking ahead, the key question is what will happen next. During an 8-minute speech just an hour into the operation, Trump stated, "Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies." This signals that the collapse of Iran's ruling regime is a primary goal for both the U.S. and Israel. Khamenei is dead, and if the reported IRGC losses are accurate, many regime and military leaders capable of organizing resistance have been eliminated. Satellite images of Khamenei's destroyed residence serve as a propaganda victory, demonstrating U.S. and Israeli military power and intelligence. This could also support a potential next phase, encouraging rebellion against the remnants of the regime by the Iranian people. Cappy Army notes that Trump's statements may aim to signal U.S. support for Iranian protests, suggesting that any domestic uprising could receive backing. The U.S. will continue using airstrikes to neutralize any response Iran's remaining regime attempts to organize. In a sense, the baton has been passed, and the early death of Khamenei may have created conditions for a people-powered uprising. However, as Politico reports, such an uprising would have to overcome decades of entrenched repressive systems, most of which remain in place. Despite Khamenei's death, the IRGC remains active, and historically, regimes as deeply committed to their ideology as Iran's are difficult to overthrow. Still, Iran's population is showing a strong desire for change. Politico suggests they may succeed where others have failed, potentially responding to the U.S. call for action. One thing is nearly certain: U.S. support will not include deploying ground forces in Iran. Republican Senator Tom Cotton has stated, "The president has no plan for any kind of large-scale ground force inside of Iran. An extended air and naval campaign building on the initial 12-hour blitz is far more likely, with the U.S. relying on Iran's citizens to exert pressure for regime change." Another concern for Iran's leadership is the involvement of other states. The Times of India reports that Israel and Saudi Arabia may have cooperated discreetly in preparation for the initial strikes, that cooperation potentially becoming more overt as the conflict continues. Saudi Arabia has reasons to oppose Iran's unpredictable attempts to assert power in the Middle East. The UK has also announced limited involvement, providing the US with access to bases, though most Gulf states view the war as not their fight. According to Al Jazeera, despite Iran's limited retaliatory missile and drone attacks on US bases in the Gulf, the situation looks bleak for Iran's regime. Its leader is dead, most air defenses are destroyed, much of the IRGC has been decimated, and the regime is in turmoil. While the war is not necessarily over, in just 12 hours, the U.S. and Israel have set the stage for a rapid and decisive collapse, showcasing a remarkable display of modern military operations. Total obliteration has hit Iran's leadership. The fall of Iran's regime could also have consequences far beyond its borders. In Russia, Vladimir Putin may be concerned about the implications of losing an Iranian ally, potentially affecting his own regime. For further analysis of what Iran's